Shutter Components Australia, on-site installation. So a 50mm round tube, all you need to do is remove your end cap over the drive wheel, replace the wheel onto the drive shaft and click the stopper in place. For a 60mm octagonal drive wheel, you'll need to place the collar over the motor. That slides over the entirety of the motor until it's met at the other end, where you'll need to click it over a little spline and then attach the drive wheel and plug. That clicks it in place and holds everything in position so it can't come off. So we're measuring off where the motor is going to sit inside the tube and where the drive wheel is going to be. So we're measuring between there, and then we'll place the motor inside the tube or axle. We're going to drill through the aluminium and the plastic drive wheel. We're just going to slip a rivet in place and pop it in, and then repeat the process on the other side. To make drilling through the aluminium easier, there are splines in the extrusion to help guide your drill bit and keep it steady. Your motor is now secure, and we move on to preparing the headbox of the shutter. Pre-drill and then rivet in the end plates into the headbox at 2 locations on either end at the top and 1 location on either end at the rear of the headbox. And this is done by using the appropriate size drill bit to suit the rivets you are using. You'll also need to pre-drill the front of the headbox in 2 locations on either end, one on the front and one on the lower side or the underneath of the shutter. This ensures that both parts are easier to install and everything lines up perfectly. Now we're on to fixing the motor bracket in place. This is done by allowing for your 4 holes and 4 rivets to be put in place. Place this part in position on both sides, as your slats will need to run through this. Next you need to fix the headbox. This can be done via many methods. We're going to be using this, the face fix channel. This here is the reveal fit. To mark your height for installation, a good rule of thumb is to put the track on the brick face at the height it will be starting and stopping at. Make sure it's reasonably aligned, and then count down 2 bricks. Then count the number of bricks courses that you are covering over in between those spaces and divide that by 2 and find the nearest full brick. Don't install it on half a brick, and then simply copy this across to the other side. Now using the appropriate drill bits, drill completely through these tracks with the smaller drill bit, and do this in all 6 locations. Make sure they're all done evenly. Complete the process by drilling a larger hole. This allows your screws and drill bits to go fully into the channel. It also allows a plug to be put in later. Crimp the ends to ensure there's no movement, and cut off any waste. Then reinstall your tracks, and using these holes as guides, drill through into your brick face or screw through into your timber. In this case, of course, we've got the brick face that we're working through, making sure that the track is nice and straight. Hammer in your plugs or fixings, whatever they may be. In this case, we're using plugs. Screw through into position. You may find you need to hold the bottom of the track in position to get the last screw into place. Then drill a nice big hole that's large enough to fit your motor cable up through and into your ceiling cavity or wall space. Well, now you're going to install the slats or the curtain into the channels. If you find there's too many slats, simply remove And what you should end up with is the top of the top slat finishing just below the inside of the head box. Onto your top slat, you install the springs. These hold the tube to the curtain. At this point, you should call your electrician, get your electrician to fix the power. Now put your pre-prepared motor into position by clicking the motor end first, and then follow by extending the telescopic end and screwing in position. Now using the appropriate size drill bit, now drill straight through using one of the extrusion guides to hold your springs in place as demonstrated. Please note that at the end nearest the motor, you must make sure that the last spring is far enough away from the motor so that it doesn't touch the drive shaft or the motor tube, as it will damage the motor. And fasten in place. Now you'll need to get a hold of a test kit from Shutter Components, and this allows you to safely provide power while driving the motor up and down to set the limits. This will be illustrated later on in the video. You may find some popping and clicking as the shutter rises and lowers. This is normal and should not be cause for alarm. The slats merely need to get settled in. Drive the curtain right the way back down again to ensure it stacks and closes correctly. Always making sure that when the motor head is in place, that the power cable firstly points down and then can wrap around and be fed out of the head box via the rear or the top. Always ensure that any holes made are securely covered. Now remove the remaining film from the head box cover and put it in position. Make sure that when feeding the leading edge of the head box that you make sure that there is nothing buckling nor stuck. This process requires a little bit of attention to the lining up of the holes and may require some assistance. Finally, put the plugs in and finish off the job. In setting the modal limits, there's a few things you need to observe. You'll notice that the direction of two sets of these go the same direction for one and completely opposite for the other. What you need to pay attention to is these little Allen key screws here. You'll be given a wand with which to adjust them with. And what this allows you to do is to increase or decrease the distance that the motor will travel in that direction. This is the limit switch here, and it governs the direction and distance that the shutter will be able to travel. By winding it one direction or the other, you increase or decrease the rotation of the motor and therefore the limits of the shutter. For more assistance, contact Shutter Components Australia or your local supplier.